The wind was sharp in the northern mountains, carrying with it the sound of distant eagles and the crackle of loose stones shifting down the slopes. Darren adjusted the strap of his pack and looked back at the small team following him. Their breath came out in small white clouds, proof of how thin and cold the air had become at this height. For weeks, they had followed maps and rumors that spoke of a strange place hidden in the mountains. Old stories told of a city buried deep beneath the stone, but most dismissed them as mountain myths passed down by wandering shepherds. Still, Darren had always believed there was something more. The mountains felt too quiet, too heavy with secrets. Beside him, Myra, the youngest in the group, rubbed her gloved hands together and whispered, "It feels like the mountain is watching us." Darren gave a small smile but said nothing. He had felt the same since they began climbing this part of the range. The rocks were marked with strange shapes, worn and faded, yet too deliberate to be random cracks. He kept moving forward, boots crunching on frozen soil. By midday, clouds began to gather, and the light dimmed. The team stopped near a steep wall of dark stone. It looked like any other cliff face, rough and jagged, yet Darren noticed something unusual. A narrow arch, almost hidden by fallen rocks, stretched across the base of the cliff. The stones covering it were not natural. They were cut, stacked, and carefully placed, as if sealing something away. Darren dropped his pack and moved closer. He brushed away snow with his glove, revealing carvings underneath. The lines were shallow but neat, forming shapes that looked like stars and waves. He felt his heart quicken. "Look at this," he called. The others gathered. Ryan, the oldest and strongest of the group, bent down to inspect the markings. "These are not the work of shepherds or hunters," he said. "This was made long ago." Myra leaned closer, tracing one of the symbols with her finger. The moment she touched it, the stone gave off a faint glow. The light spread like water through the carvings, illuminating the arch. Everyone stepped back in silence as the glow pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. No one spoke for several breaths. Then Myra whispered, "It is alive." The glow dimmed but did not vanish. It seemed to be waiting. Darren placed his hand on the carving as well. The light brightened again, spreading farther this time. With a low rumble, the stacked stones shifted. Dust and small pebbles fell as the arch slowly opened, revealing a dark passage leading into the mountain. The air that drifted out was cold but strangely clean, as though the place had been sealed for centuries and preserved perfectly. Ryan lifted his lantern. "We should not enter blindly. It may be dangerous." Darren nodded but could not hide the curiosity in his eyes. "This is what we came for. We will move carefully." They lit their lanterns and stepped inside. The ground sloped downward, smooth beneath their boots. The walls were carved with more symbols, glowing faintly whenever their light touched them. Unlike the rough surface outside, the interior stone was polished, almost like glass. The silence pressed in around them, broken only by the crunch of their steps and the occasional drip of water. Myra kept close to Darren, while Ryan stayed at the back, his hand resting near the tools on his belt in case of trouble. As they descended, the passage widened into a large chamber. Their lanterns revealed tall pillars reaching into the dark ceiling. Each pillar was covered in carvings, thousands of symbols and shapes running upward like rivers of light. "This is no cave," Darren said softly. "It is built." The chamber felt endless. The team spread out, exploring carefully. Myra found a pool of still water that reflected the glowing carvings. Ryan inspected the pillars, running his calloused fingers along the smooth stone. Darren walked toward the far wall, where the carvings formed a large circular design. At its center was a star-shaped symbol larger than the rest. He stepped closer, and without warning, the chamber brightened. The walls, the floor, and the ceiling lit up with flowing light, chasing away every shadow. The explorers shielded their eyes, then lowered their hands slowly as the glow settled into a steady brilliance. The star symbol pulsed, sending ripples of light across the chamber. A sound followed, low and resonant, like distant chimes carried through stone. No one spoke. They felt as though the mountain itself had woken. Then, without warning, a deep crack echoed behind them. The archway they had entered was sealing itself, stone sliding back into place. Ryan rushed toward it but stopped when he realized the path was completely blocked. They were trapped inside. Myra's voice trembled. "It does not want us to leave." Darren steadied his breathing. Fear pressed at the edges of his thoughts, but he forced it back. He looked at the glowing star on the wall. It pulsed slowly, almost invitingly. "I think it wants us to go forward," he said. The others turned toward him. There was hesitation in their eyes, yet the glow seemed to guide their steps. They realized this was no ordinary ruin. It was a place waiting for them, a city carved beneath the mountains, hidden until the right moment. Darren felt a strange certainty. The mountain had been guarding a secret for centuries, maybe longer, and now it had opened its heart to them. He placed his hand on the glowing star. The chamber shifted again. The floor beneath them trembled, and new passageways opened on either side, leading deeper into the mountain. The sound of the stone moving was like a drum beat, steady and strong. Darren looked back at his team. Their fear had not vanished, but curiosity now stood beside it. They had set out to find traces of a myth, and instead they had uncovered something that defied belief. "Stay close," Darren said. "The mountain has shown us the way. We follow it." With lanterns raised and hearts pounding, the explorers stepped into the newly opened path, unaware of how deeply the journey would change not only their lives but the future of their kind. The city beneath the mountains had awakened, and it had chosen them. The new passage opened before them like the throat of some ancient creature, wide and waiting, its stone walls glowing with faint streams of light. Darren held his lantern high, though it was hardly needed now. The walls themselves shone softly, guiding their steps downward. The air was cooler than before but not stale. It carried a strange freshness, as though the mountain itself was breathing. The explorers hesitated at the entrance. Myra stood close behind Darren, her eyes wide with both fear and excitement. Ryan, steady as always, took his place at the rear, keeping his gaze sharp and his tools ready. Darren stepped forward first. His boots tapped lightly against the smooth floor as he crossed into the new passage. The others followed, their footsteps echoing faintly. The walls seemed alive with the glow of symbols that ran in twisting lines like rivers of light. Each step they took seemed to make the lines brighten, as if the city was aware of their movement. "This place was not abandoned," Myra whispered. Her voice trembled but carried a note of awe. "It was waiting." No one argued. The truth of it was clear. The descent grew steeper as they moved forward. The tunnel bent and curved, always downward, deeper into the mountain. Their lanterns swayed, casting long shadows that danced across the glowing walls. At times the passage narrowed so tightly they had to walk in single file, their shoulders brushing against the smooth stone. At other times it opened into wide halls supported by great pillars carved into shapes that looked almost human, though stretched and unfamiliar. Darren paused at one of these halls. The pillars rose high into the dark above, their faces marked with carvings of stars, moons, and ships with wings. The light from the walls reflected across the carvings, making the figures look as though they were moving. Myra placed her hand on one of the pillars. The carving glowed under her touch, and for a brief moment she felt warmth through her glove. She drew back quickly, startled. "It feels alive," she said. Ryan frowned. "Alive or not, we must keep moving. The way back has closed. The only path left is forward." Darren nodded. He felt the same pull that Myra did, though he kept his thoughts quiet. It was not fear that guided him, but a deep curiosity. He sensed that the city beneath the mountain had chosen them for a reason. They moved again, deeper into the unknown. The path led them to a chamber larger than anything they had yet seen. The roof arched high above, vanishing into shadow. The walls curved in a perfect circle, and in the center of the chamber stood a platform made of smooth stone. It rose slightly from the ground, shaped like a disc, and at its edges were carvings that pulsed with a slow rhythm of light. The explorers stepped cautiously toward it. "This feels like a place of meeting," Darren said. His voice was soft, respectful, as if he feared disturbing the silence of the chamber. Myra walked to the edge of the platform and looked down at the carvings. She noticed that they formed patterns like constellations, familiar and strange at the same time. Some she recognized from the night sky, others were unknown. When Darren stepped onto the platform, the chamber changed. The carvings flared to life, and the air filled with a low hum. The ground trembled gently, and beams of light rose from the platform, swirling upward until they formed a great shape in the air above them. The explorers gasped as the shape solidified into a map of stars. The stars hung above them like lanterns, scattered across the dark chamber. Lines of light connected them, forming paths that stretched far beyond the mountains, far beyond the world they knew. It was not only a map of the night sky, but a guide across the heavens. Ryan stepped closer, his lantern hanging forgotten at his side. "This is not the work of shepherds or kings," he said. "This is the work of something greater." The map shifted as they watched. Stars rearranged themselves, forming images. They saw figures of tall beings with elongated limbs, standing beside ships that glowed with light. They saw worlds filled with towers and rivers of fire, then saw those worlds crumble into silence. The images told a story of a people who had built wonders and then lost them. The last image showed a mountain, familiar and strong, with a city carved within. Then the vision faded, leaving only the glowing map. Myra's eyes shone. "They came here. They built this city and hid their knowledge inside it. And now we are here." Darren felt a heavy weight settle on him. The story was clear. The beings who built this place had placed their legacy in the heart of the mountain, waiting for someone to find it. And now that someone was them. Before he could speak, the platform shifted. A part of the floor opened silently, revealing a staircase that spiraled downward. Faint light glowed from below, beckoning them further. The explorers exchanged glances. None of them wished to admit fear, but all of them felt it. Still, the choice was not theirs anymore. The path back was closed. The only road was forward, into the deep. They descended the staircase slowly. Each step carried them farther from the world above and deeper into the unknown. The walls glowed with gentle light, but the air grew heavier, as though they were walking not only into stone but into history itself. At last the staircase ended, and they emerged into a corridor unlike anything they had seen before. The floor was smooth, the ceiling arched, and along the walls were rows of strange objects resting in alcoves. They looked like machines, silent and waiting. Some were small, no larger than a lantern, while others stretched taller than a man. Each one was carved with symbols, their surfaces faintly shining. Ryan approached one cautiously. He placed his hand near it, but the machine did not stir. He pulled back quickly. "These are tools," he said, "but not made by human hands." Myra whispered, "What if they wake like the walls and the map?" Darren's gaze traveled down the corridor. The machines stretched endlessly into the distance, like guardians standing watch. He felt the weight of countless eyes upon him, though none moved. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. The explorers walked on, their steps echoing in the silent hall. They did not know what awaited them deeper within, but they understood one thing clearly. The lost city beneath the mountains was not a ruin. It was alive, preserved by design, waiting for them to come. And now that they had entered, there would be no turning back. The silent corridor stretched on, lined with strange machines that seemed to slumber in the glow of the walls. The explorers moved slowly, their footsteps echoing against the stone. Darren led the way, his lantern held high, though the soft light of the walls was bright enough to guide them. Myra followed close, her eyes wide as she studied every carving, every faint shimmer. Ryan stayed at the rear, his strong frame ready to protect if danger came. The air grew warmer as they went deeper, no longer the biting cold of the mountain above. It was still and heavy, carrying a faint hum that none of them had noticed before. The hum was quiet at first, like the sound of faraway water, but it grew stronger the further they walked. After some time, the corridor ended at a great set of doors. They were carved from the same stone as the mountain, yet smoother than glass, covered in symbols that pulsed slowly with light. The glow seemed alive, as if the doors were breathing. The three explorers stood before them, silent. "It feels like it knows we are here," Myra whispered. Darren reached out with his hand but stopped just before touching the surface. "It has guided us here. If we are meant to enter, it will allow us." Before he could decide, the doors stirred. Lines of light ran across their surface, meeting at the center where a star-shaped mark appeared. With a deep sound that shook the floor, the door slid apart, opening into a vast chamber beyond. The explorers stepped through. The chamber was unlike anything they had seen. It was round and wide, with a ceiling so high it vanished into shadows. In the center stood a tall structure made of crystal and metal, reaching upward like a tower of light. Its surface shimmered with shifting colors, and from within came the steady hum that now filled the air. Around the tower were smaller structures, glowing softly. They looked like seats or stations, each carved with the same star-shaped mark that had guided them. Myra stepped forward, her voice trembling with awe. "It is not only a city. It is alive. It is waiting." As if in answer, the tower pulsed with bright light. The glow spread outward, rushing across the chamber walls and into the floor. The hum grew louder, deep and clear, vibrating through the stone and through their very bones. The explorers shielded their eyes as the chamber filled with light. Then, as quickly as it began, the glow softened. When they lowered their hands, they saw the chamber had changed. The walls now shone with moving images. Stars wheeled across them, ships of light traveled between them, and tall figures walked among glowing cities. The explorers gasped as they realized the walls were showing them memories. The tall figures were not human. They had long limbs and narrow faces, and their eyes glowed faintly. They were builders, creators, shaping great cities and ships. Their hands carved symbols of power and knowledge. Then the images changed. The explorers saw fire in the skies. They saw the tall beings fleeing from falling stars, their ships burning, their cities crumbling. The great builders were forced to retreat, hiding their knowledge deep inside the mountains of strange worlds. Finally, the image showed the very mountain where Darren and his team now stood. The tall beings carved the city into stone, set the machines to guard it, and then vanished into the darkness of time. The walls went dark again, leaving the explorers in silence. "They wanted us to see this," Darren said softly. His voice carried a weight, as though he understood the importance of what they had been shown. "They left their world behind, and this city is their memory." Before the others could answer, the tower in the center stirred again. A voice filled the chamber. It was not in words they knew, but in tones that pressed directly into their minds. The sound was gentle yet powerful, like music mixed with thunder. The explorers froze. Then, slowly, the voice shifted. The tones bent and changed until they formed clear words in their own language. "Who walks in the city of memory?" the voice asked. The three stood still, stunned. Darren stepped forward, gathering his courage. "We are travelers. We are human. We found the mountain and followed its path." The voice echoed again, calm but strong. "You are not the first to enter. Others came before you. They turned away, unable to bear the burden. But you remain. Do you seek to awaken the city?" Myra gripped Darren's arm, her heart racing. Awaken it? What does that mean? She whispered. Darren did not answer her. His eyes stayed fixed on the tower. If we awaken it, what will happen? He asked the voice. The city will rise, the voice replied. Its knowledge will open. Its power will live again. But the choice carries weight. Those who awaken it must prove they are worthy, or the city will close forever. Ryan stepped forward, his brow heavy with caution. We do not know what trials you mean. We are only people, not builders of stars. The voice softened. Worth is not measured in stone or fire. It is measured in heart, in will, in unity. If you wish to carry the legacy, you must prove yourselves. The tower pulsed again, and the floor shifted beneath them. 3 paths opened around the chamber, each one glowing with faint light. 3 trials, the voice said. Strength. Mind. Spirit. Each of you must walk a path. Together you will awaken the city, or together you will fail. The explorers exchanged uneasy glances. None of them spoke for a moment. Finally, Darren placed a steady hand on Myra's shoulder. This is why we were brought here, he said. The city has chosen us. We must face it. Myra's fear was plain, but she nodded. Then we go forward. Ryan tightened the straps of his pack, his face set with quiet resolve. If this is a test, we will meet it. The 3 stood at the center of the chamber, the glowing path stretching before them. The air was filled with the steady hum of the city, like a heartbeat waiting for its answer. Darren looked at the tower one last time. We accept, he said. The chamber shook with light. The tower flared, and the 3 paths brightened. The voice echoed once more. Then the awakening begins. The explorers stepped forward, each toward their own path, their hearts heavy but steady. They had come seeking a myth, but now they carried the weight of something greater than they had ever imagined. The city of the builders had awoken, and it had set its eyes on them. The chamber was silent except for the low hum that filled the air. The 3 glowing paths stretched forward, each leading to a different archway carved into the stone walls. The light from the tower pulsed like a heartbeat, urging the explorers onward. Darren, Myra, and Ryan stood close together, knowing that what lay ahead would test them in ways they could not yet understand. The voice from the tower echoed once more, calm and steady. Strength. Mind. Spirit. Each of you must face what is before you. The city remembers, and the city will judge. The 3 exchanged glances. Darren nodded first, setting his jaw with quiet determination. We walk our paths, but we stay true to each other. When it is finished, we return here together. Myra's hands trembled, but her eyes shone with courage. Yes. We began this as a team. We end it as a team. Ryan gave a firm nod. Then let us begin. They stepped toward the paths. At once, the chamber shifted. The light thickened around them, and each of the explorers felt themselves being pulled forward. The world blurred, and they were carried away into their trials. Darren's trial, strength. Darren found himself standing in a vast cavern filled with towering stones. The air was heavy, and the ground trembled with each passing moment. Before him lay a broken bridge stretching across a deep chasm. The far side glowed faintly, showing the path forward. A voice filled the air around him. Strength is not only of the body but of the will. Cross, and prove that you can endure. The bridge was shattered in many places, with gaps too wide to step across. Darren looked around and saw blocks of stone scattered nearby, each one heavy and rough. He understood what he had to do. He bent down, gripped one of the stones, and lifted it with all his strength. His muscles strained, his breath came hard, but he carried the stone to the gap and set it down. The block locked into place, forming part of the bridge. The ground trembled again. The chasm seemed deeper now, darker. Darren swallowed his fear and returned for another stone. He carried it forward, step by step, until sweat ran down his face. Each block felt heavier than the last, as though the mountain itself was testing his resolve. Halfway across, his arms shook with exhaustion. His back ached, his hands burned. He wanted to stop, to rest. But he thought of Myra and Ryan. He thought of the promise he had made. He forced himself to keep moving. At last, with one final block, the bridge was whole again. Darren staggered forward across it, his body weak but his spirit strong. As he stepped onto the far side, the chasm faded away. The cavern dissolved into light, and he felt himself being carried onward. Myra's trial, mind Myra stood in a chamber filled with walls of shifting light. Symbols floated in the air around her, glowing and moving as though alive. At the center of the chamber was a tall pillar, its surface covered in carvings that flickered like fireflies. The voice spoke gently. Mind is not in knowledge alone but in understanding. Solve, and prove that you can see clearly. The floating symbols moved faster, forming patterns. Myra realized they were pieces of a puzzle, broken and scattered. She stepped closer to the pillar, and lines of light stretched out to meet the symbols. It was as though the city was asking her to bring order to chaos. She studied the shapes carefully. Some looked like stars, others like paths between them. Slowly, she began to arrange them. With each correct placement, the pillar glowed brighter. The puzzle grew harder as more symbols appeared. They twisted and spun, trying to confuse her. Myra's hands shook, and doubt pressed at her mind. She feared she was not clever enough, that she would fail. But she remembered the map they had seen earlier, the constellations carved into the chamber of stars. She closed her eyes, recalling the patterns. Slowly, she began to match the symbols to those same constellations. Piece by piece, the puzzle fell into place. At last, the pillar shone with a steady light. The floating symbols dissolved into sparks, and the chamber shifted. Myra felt warmth fill her chest, not only from success but from the knowledge that she could trust her own mind. The chamber dissolved into light, and she too was carried onward. Ryan's trial, Spirit Ryan opened his eyes and found himself standing in a small chamber. Unlike the others, this place was quiet and plain. No puzzles, no bridges, no glowing symbols. Only a mirror stood before him, tall and clear. The voice spoke, softer now. Spirit is not in strength or mind but in truth. Look, and prove that you can face yourself. Ryan frowned. He had faced storms, battles, and hardships in his life, yet the mirror unsettled him. He stepped closer, and his reflection gazed back. At first, it was simple, his weathered face, his steady eyes, his strong frame. But then the reflection changed. He saw himself turning away from challenges, walking paths of safety while others carried the burden. He saw fear hidden beneath his calm, the doubt he never spoke aloud. The images stung him. He wanted to turn away, but the mirror held him. The voice whispered, to guide others, you must guide yourself. Do not deny your weakness. Accept it, and you will find strength. Ryan's hands clenched at his sides. Slowly, he faced the truth. He admitted his fear, his doubt, his weariness. He let it rise within him, and instead of fighting it, he accepted it. The reflection steadied. His image no longer showed failure but resolve. His fear was still there, but it no longer controlled him. The mirror glowed with light, then dissolved into air. Ryan felt a calm strength fill his chest, deeper than muscle, deeper than bone. He had faced himself and endured. The chamber faded, and he too was carried onward. The three explorers opened their eyes and found themselves back in the great chamber. The tower of crystal and metal pulsed with light, brighter than before. The paths they had walked were gone, closed behind them. They looked at one another. Darren's body bore the marks of strain, Myra's face still glowed with thought, and Ryan's eyes were steady with new calm. Each had walked a different path, yet they stood stronger than before. The voice of the city echoed again. You have faced strength, mind, and spirit. You have proven worthy. The city remembers, and the city awakens. The tower flared with brilliance, sending waves of light through the chamber. The ground trembled, and the hum rose into a clear song, a sound that seemed to echo through the very bones of the mountain. The explorers stood together, their hearts pounding. They had passed the test, but they knew this was only the beginning. The city had awakened, and with it, the weight of an ancient legacy now rested upon them. The tower's song still echoed in the chamber when the explorers stepped back from its glow. The mountain seemed alive now, its walls humming with a pulse that reached every stone. Darren, Myra, and Ryan stood together, their faces lit by the shifting light, each of them changed by the trials they had faced. For a moment, there was silence and wonder. The city had accepted them. The trials were complete. The path forward was theirs. But their peace did not last. From behind them came the sound of grinding stone. One of the sealed doors at the edge of the chamber began to shift, opening with a heavy groan. The explorers turned quickly, their hands ready, though they had no weapons but their lanterns and tools. Through the doorway stepped figures not of stone, but of flesh and blood. They were men and women, dressed in heavy gear and carrying tools of their own. Their lanterns shone against the glowing walls, and their voices filled the chamber. So the stories were true, one of them said. His voice carried pride and greed. The city is real. Darren's heart sank. He had hoped their discovery would remain secret a little longer, but it seemed word had spread faster than they imagined. The newcomers were not fellow explorers searching for knowledge. Their eyes glimmered with hunger for power. The leader of the group, a tall man with sharp eyes, stepped forward. He carried himself with confidence, as if the chamber already belonged to him. You have awakened the city, he said. That means the way is open. Step aside, and we will take it from here. Myra stepped closer to Darren, her voice low. They will destroy everything. They do not understand what this place is. Ryan's hands curled into fists. He had faced his fear in the trial, and now he felt only calm resolve. We cannot let them take it, he said. Darren lifted his chin. This city does not belong to us, or to you, he told the strangers. It belongs to the builders who made it. And it has chosen who may enter. The tall man laughed coldly. The mountain cannot choose. It is only stone and trickery. But knowledge can be taken. Power can be taken. You three are lucky to be alive after coming this far. Hand over what you know, or you will not leave this place. The tower behind them pulsed again, brighter this time. The city seemed to sense the danger. The carvings on the walls glowed with sharper light, as though warning both groups. Myra stepped forward, her voice clear. The city is not a weapon. It is memory. It is trust. If you treat it as a prize, it will close itself forever. Her words seemed to anger the leader. He gestured, and two of his companions moved closer. Enough talk, he said. Stand aside. Darren raised his hand. Wait. Listen to the chamber. It is alive. It watches us. If you force your way, you may destroy everything. But the newcomers were blind to warning. Their greed was stronger than their caution. One of them touched the base of the tower, trying to carve away a piece of the glowing crystal. The chamber answered at once. A deep tremor shook the floor, and a wave of light burst outward. The man cried out and fell back, his lantern shattering against the stone. The glow of the tower flared, and the voice of the city filled the air. Unworthy. The city does not give to those who take. The newcomers froze. Fear flashed across their faces, but the leader's pride held firm. We are not unworthy, he shouted. We are survivors. We will claim this power. The voice grew louder, echoing like thunder. Greed destroys. Pride blinds. The city closes to you. The walls of the chamber rippled with light, and the doorway behind the newcomers began to seal. Stones slid into place, cutting off their retreat. Panic broke through their bravado. They rushed toward the closing door, shouting and pushing, but the mountain gave them no escape. Darren, Myra, and Ryan stood still, watching as the city made its judgment. The strangers were trapped in the chamber, their greed turning to fear. Myra whispered, "The city warned them." Ryan's voice was steady. "It warned them, and they would not listen." The tall leader turned toward Darren, his eyes blazing with fury. "You did this. You brought us here. If we are trapped, so are you." But even as he spoke, the tower's light reached toward the explorers. It touched Darren, Myra, and Ryan gently, surrounding them in a warm glow. The mountain hummed, and the voice spoke again, softer now. "The worthy will walk forward. The unworthy will remain." Before the strangers could move, the floor beneath the explorers shifted. A new path opened directly behind the tower, glowing with steady light. The three were carried toward it, their feet moving as though guided by unseen hands. The leader of the strangers cried out, rushing forward to follow. But when he reached the path, the light turned sharp and forced him back. He fell to the stone, his face twisted in anger and fear. Darren's heart was heavy as he turned away. "They chose their path," he said quietly. Myra's eyes filled with sadness, but she nodded. "The city gave them a chance, but they refused it." Ryan's face was calm, though firm. "We cannot save those who will not listen. We must carry the legacy ourselves." The path behind the tower glowed brighter, urging them onward. With one last look at the sealed chamber, the three explorers stepped into the light. The stone closed behind them, cutting off the cries of the trapped strangers. The new passage carried them deeper, the air warm and filled with the hum of the awakened city. Their steps echoed softly, steady and sure. Though conflict had tested them, they had chosen wisely, and the city had chosen them in return. As they walked forward, Darren spoke quietly, his voice filled with both determination and weight. "The city is alive, and it has given us trust. We must not fail it." Myra placed her hand against the glowing wall. "This is no longer just discovery. This is duty." Ryan nodded. "Then let us walk as one. The trials are behind us, but greater tests may wait ahead." Together, they walked deeper into the heart of the lost city, leaving behind those who had tried to claim it for greed. The mountain had chosen, and its choice was clear. Humanity's legacy would not be built on pride or hunger, but on strength, wisdom, and spirit. The glowing passage carried the explorers deeper into the mountain. The hum of the city surrounded them, no longer faint but strong, like the steady beat of a heart. Darren walked in front, his lantern forgotten at his side, for the walls themselves glowed with enough light to guide their way. Myra followed close, her eyes fixed on the shifting symbols carved into the stone. Ryan brought up the rear, silent but watchful, his steps firm. They had faced trials of strength, mind, and spirit. They had seen greed punished by the city's judgment. Yet the air ahead felt heavier now, as if the mountain itself knew the next test would be greater than all before. At last, the passage opened into a vast chamber unlike any they had yet seen. The ceiling arched so high it disappeared into shadows. The walls were smooth and bright, covered with flowing streams of light that shifted like rivers. At the center stood a great pedestal, and upon it rested a crystal sphere as wide as a man's chest. It glowed with steady brilliance, and its light filled the chamber like a rising dawn. The explorers stood in silence, staring at it. "The heart of the city," Myra whispered. The voice of the city filled the chamber, calm and deep. "You have walked the paths of strength, mind, and spirit. You have proven worthy. Now the city places its final trust in you. The heart contains memory and knowledge of the builders. It will awaken fully if you choose to open it. But know this, once awakened, its knowledge will belong to your kind. It cannot be hidden again. The explorers exchanged uneasy glances. Darren stepped closer, his voice steady. What knowledge does it hold? Guides to power, the voice answered. Maps of stars. Songs of creation. The shaping of stone, light, and fire. The wisdom of an age long gone. With it, you may rise. With it, you may fall. The choice rests with you. The words hung heavy in the chamber. Myra felt her breath catch. Ryan's face was dark with thought. Darren's eyes stayed on the glowing sphere, his heart torn between wonder and fear. Myra broke the silence first. This is what we came for, Darren. The builders did not hide their city for nothing. They left it as a gift, waiting for us to claim it. Ryan shook his head. Or as a warning. Power can destroy as easily as it can build. Did you not see the others? Their greed was their end. If we awaken this heart, who is to say our people will not make the same mistake? Myra turned to him, her voice sharp. But if we leave it sealed, what then? The knowledge will be lost forever. We would walk away with nothing but stories. Is that what you want? To bury the truth once more. The tension between them grew, but Darren raised his hand. Enough. The choice must be made together. Not by anger, not by fear. He stepped closer to the pedestal. The sphere glowed brighter as he approached, as if recognizing him. For a moment, he saw his reflection on its surface, his tired eyes, his weathered face, and the weight of leadership pressing on him. The voice of the city spoke again. The builders could not carry their legacy into the stars. They left it here, hidden in stone, waiting for another to find it. They believed in those who would come after. Do you accept their trust? Darren turned back to his companions. Myra sees hope. Ryan sees danger. Both are right. If we take this knowledge, it could change everything. But it could also tear us apart. The city does not give us certainty. It gives us choice. Ryan's voice was low but steady. I fear what men will do with power such as this. Myra's eyes were bright. I fear what will be lost if we walk away. The chamber was silent except for the hum of the city. Darren looked from one friend to the other, then back at the sphere. His heart was heavy, but he understood now why the city had chosen them. The trials of strength, mind, and spirit had not been about stone or puzzles. They had been about teaching them how to choose. He placed his hand gently on the surface of the sphere. It was warm, alive, as though it carried a heartbeat of its own. Images filled his mind, stars beyond counting, ships gliding through endless skies, voices singing in languages long forgotten. He felt the weight of an entire civilization resting within the sphere. The voice spoke again, softer now. Will you awaken the heart? Darren closed his eyes. He thought of the greedy strangers who had tried to claim the city. He thought of Myra's hope, of Ryan's caution, of his own doubts. He thought of the builders, who had lost everything yet still left behind their gift. Finally, he spoke. We will not keep the heart for ourselves. We will not let it be a weapon. But neither will we bury it in silence. We will awaken it, and we will share its wisdom carefully, as guardians, not rulers. The sphere pulsed with light, brighter and brighter, until the whole chamber shone like a sun. Myra shielded her eyes, tears running down her cheeks, not of sorrow, but of awe. Ryan bowed his head, silent but accepting. The voice of the city rose one final time. You have chosen. The builders placed their trust in the future, and you have proven worthy of that trust. Guard it well. Walk with wisdom. For what you awaken cannot be unmade. The crystal sphere dissolved into light, and streams of brilliance spread across the chamber, rushing into the walls, the ceiling, and the floor. The entire city stirred. The hum grew into a song, deep and beautiful, echoing through every stone. The mountain shook, but not with anger, with life. Darren stepped back, his heart pounding. Myra's face glowed with joy, while Ryan's eyes carried quiet resolve. They had made their choice, and the city had accepted it. As the light dimmed, a new path opened behind the pedestal, glowing with gentle warmth. The voice spoke once more, now distant, as though fading into the stone. The city is yours, but not only yours. It belongs to all who come after. Remember this. The explorers stood together, their faces lit by the glow of the path. They had carried the weight of choice, and they had chosen not for themselves alone but for all of humanity. Darren took a deep breath. The builders gave us trust. Now we must be worthy of it. Myra nodded, her eyes shining. This is only the beginning. Ryan's voice was calm and firm. Then let us guard it well. Together, they stepped onto the glowing path, leaving the chamber behind. The heart of the city had awakened, and with it, a new destiny for humankind. The glowing path carried the explorers forward, guiding them through winding halls carved with light. Darren, Myra, and Ryan walked in silence, each of them lost in thought. Behind them, the chamber of the heart faded into stillness, its song now part of the living city. Ahead, a soft golden glow promised an ending or perhaps a new beginning. The path ended at a wide balcony carved into the mountain's side. The explorers stepped out, and for the first time since their journey began, they saw the open world again. The sky stretched wide above them, painted with stars and a rising moon. The valley below lay dark and quiet, unaware of the awakening deep within the mountain. Myra leaned against the railing, her eyes shining as she looked out. It feels strange, she said softly. The city has been asleep for so long, and now it breathes again. But the world outside knows nothing of what has been found. Ryan stood beside her, his face calm. That may be for the best. The city gave us knowledge, but not to flaunt. The builders chose us to be guardians. We must be careful. Darren said nothing at first. His gaze stayed on the stars, as if seeking answers in their endless light. At last, he spoke, his voice steady. The city gave us trust. That is heavier than stone. We must carry it wisely, or we will fail not only ourselves but those who built this place. The three stood in silence for a while, listening to the quiet night. Yet beneath the quiet, they felt the hum of the awakened city behind them, steady and alive, like the pulse of a hidden heart beneath the mountain. The days that followed were filled with both wonder and wait. The explorers made camp near the mountain's entrance, where cool streams ran and the forest grew thick. From time to time, they returned to the halls of the city, guided now by its gentle light. Doors that had once been sealed opened for them. Chambers revealed records of the builders' images of their lives, songs stored in crystal walls, and maps of distant stars carved into great domes. Myra spent hours tracing the maps, her eyes wide with dreams. She spoke of ships sailing to new worlds, of voices rising together in shared knowledge. She believed the builders wanted humankind to continue where they had left off. Ryan walked the halls with quiet caution. He read the warnings carved into the stone, the records of wars and mistakes that had brought the builders low. He reminded Myra and Darren that knowledge was a gift, but also a fire. If carried carelessly, it could burn the world. Darren listened to both. He wrote what they discovered into careful journals, each word chosen with care. He felt the burden of leadership, knowing that what they carried could shape the path of all humanity. One evening, as the three sat by their fire near the mountain's mouth, the silence was broken by the sound of voices. Travelers appeared, miners from a nearby village who had heard strange stories of light on the mountain. They asked questions, curious but cautious. Darren exchanged a glance with his companions. The time of choice was not over. How much should they reveal? Should the city remain secret, or should its story begin to spread? Myra's voice was soft but sure. The builders left their gift for all. It must not be hidden forever. Ryan's voice was calm but firm. But to share too quickly is to invite greed. We saw what happened to those who rushed without wisdom. The world is not ready for all of it at once. Darren nodded slowly. Then we must walk a middle path. We will not lie, but we will guard the heart. We will share what inspires, but keep what could destroy until the time is right. So when the miners asked again, Darren told them a careful truth. There is a place within the mountain, he said. A city built by hands long gone. It holds stories and songs of the past. We are its keepers now. One day, all will see, but not today. The miners nodded, respectful though puzzled. They left with tales of glowing stone and voices beneath the earth, but without the full truth. The explorers knew the city remained safe. Seasons turned. Snow crowned the mountain, then melted to green once more. The explorers returned often to the heart of the city, guided by its light and wisdom. They learned more each time. Some knowledge was gentle, teaching how to shape stone into shelter, how to heal with plants and light. Other knowledge was vast and dangerous, machines that bent fire, ships that crossed stars, weapons that could shatter mountains. These they sealed within the deepest vaults, writing warnings in their journals. Myra grew ever more hopeful, seeing the city as a path to a brighter tomorrow. Ryan grew ever more watchful, seeing in every gift the shadow of danger. Darren stood between them, steady as the stone, carrying both their truths. And so the three became not just explorers, but guardians. Word of the lost city spread slowly among nearby villages, carried by rumor and story. Yet the true heart of it remained safe, known only to those chosen by the mountain itself. Years passed. The world beyond the mountain began to change. More travelers came, scholars and seekers, drawn by whispers of hidden light. Some came with honest hearts, others with hungry eyes. The guardians stood firm, allowing only those who came with respect to enter even the outer halls. One day, Myra stood again on the balcony where they had first seen the stars after awakening the heart. She looked at the valley below, now alive with torches and tents of people who wished to learn. Her voice was soft but filled with strength. The builders dreamed of the future. Perhaps this is it. Not a sudden gift, but a slow passing of wisdom. Not power handed freely, but trust earned step by step. Ryan stood beside her, his face calm. If that is the way, then it is a good way. A flame too bright burns out. But a steady fire warms many. Darren placed his hands on the railing, his heart heavy yet filled with quiet pride. The city was never meant to belong to one person, or even to us three. It belongs to all who are willing to walk the path, to face the trials, and to choose with wisdom. The hum of the mountain rose behind them, as if the city itself agreed. And so the legacy of the lost city was not of conquest or greed, but of patience, wisdom, and shared trust. Darren, Myra, and Ryan remained its guardians, not rulers, guiding those who came after with steady hands. The builder's gift lived on not as a weapon, but as a light in the dark, a reminder that even when civilizations fall, their wisdom can rise again if hearts are strong enough to carry it. The mountain stood silent above the valley, but beneath its stone, the city sang. Its song was no longer one of mourning. It was a song of legacy, carried by the guardians who had chosen not for themselves, but for all of humankind. The choice had been made, and its echo would shape the world for generations to come.